Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
It's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Plo Koon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Hey, it's Leif Gaffert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldovar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Ruari Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host, Ruari, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have actor Mickey Lewis, who is best known for playing the Third Doctor, the Day of the Doctor, Special Weapons Dalek, Millennium Alien, Cyberman, and the Dalek Operator in Doctor Who, a Helicopter Navigator in The Man from U.N.C.L.E, a soldier in the Huntsman, a zombie in the Resort, a naughty Jesus in the Vinci's Demons, and a Possessed Cameraman in Being Human. He will play an Imperial General in the soon-to-be-released Star Wars The Force Awakens. However, naturally, with it being Disney and Lucasfilm and all of the big companies running the show, he is unable to talk about Star Wars due to an NDA clause yet to sign. But, you know, it's in a weird way, you know, you're still the first Force Awakens guest we've had on the podcast, so we can still, that's something to think about anyway. And as a big fan of the Imperial officers, you know, it's pretty cool that I've inadvertently managed to get an Imperial guest without actually meaning to.
I can't talk about that, but it's lovely to talk to you about everything else, Rory. It's great to be on the Everything Geek podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you join us today. So, getting right into my questions for you, Mickey, my first question is, how did you decide you wanted to become an actor?
Oh, well, I'd done acting at school and been in a few plays, and then in later years I was acting at the Red Grave Theatre in the Epic of Gilgamesh, playing a wild man, Enkidu the Wild Man, so I just had to run around on stage in a loincloth, basically, so that was very weird. But it gave me the acting bug. I absolutely loved it, performing in front of a live audience, and it just went on from there, really. It was always in the back of my mind, and I did various other jobs, but I was always gravitating back towards acting and messing around on TV or whatever, or in film. And finally I got to do it with Doctor Who, which was my first time in front of the cameras.
Yeah, and leading on from that, which actually leads directly into my second question, how were you originally cast in Doctor Who, and which was your first role on the show? You kind of answered the first part already.
Yeah, I've kind of jumped ahead there. Yeah, my first ever job on TV was Doctor Who. It just came completely out of the blue, really. I signed up with an agency, and my very first call, it was just left on my answer machine, because they didn't even have my mobile number, was, would you like to be on Doctor Who? And I played it back a few times. I thought, is this a prank? Would I like to be on Doctor Who? Yeah, of course I would. I just really wasn't expecting that. So I phoned them back, and they explained what the job would be. All they said was it would be playing a monster in the first episode of the new series of Doctor Who, which was back in 2012. They didn't say what the monster would be. I didn't find out until the very next day, or a few days later, when I turned up for the job. And the second assistant director was letting me in, and she said, oh yeah, you know you're playing a Dalek, don't you? And I went, what? Had no idea. So, yeah, that was it. I had to attend Dalek training school with about 7 or 8 other Daleks, and we all had to try out all different sizes and shapes of Daleks that had been throughout the years, from really small ones in the 60s to the big ones in the late 2000s. And, yeah, I settled on a bronze one in that episode. which was a good fit.
Yeah, I mean...
So, yeah, that was how I started my TV work.
Yeah.
Into the deep end with Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, you know, with the whole Doctor Who experience, you know, just... I'm sure you literally were just shocked when you were told on your first day you're playing a Dalek, and you're like, should I not be playing a smaller part like a Dalek? You're basically giving me the god of Doctor Who aliens in my first day.
I know, absolutely blew me away. I had to keep pinching myself in the Dalek training school. But then that was just the training school. The very first day actually filming, it was the same episode. This was Asylum of the Daleks. But before they had me in the Dalek case, I'm not going to call it a suit, the Dalek prop, they had me as a skeleton monster, which was on board the spaceship in the Asylum of the Daleks. I don't know if you remember the details of that episode, but Matt Smith boards this crashed spaceship and sees all these dead astronauts in polar suits sitting around in the spacecraft. And we slowly come to life, and I was one of those. In fact, I was the one that had to attack Amy Pond and grab her with my skeleton gloves and wrestle with her in the doorway. So that was great fun. And my abiding memory of that first day of shooting was holding hands with Amy Pond, Karen Gillan, for about 10 minutes, which was really strange because I had to keep grabbing her wrist on the actual takes. In between takes, somehow my hand kind of slid down her arm into her hand, and we just ended up holding hands, which was very strange and surreal. But she didn't shake my hand away, so I was quite happy.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, sir, there's a lot of people that would want to be in your position in that you know, scenario, and I'm sure a lot of people will be just listening to that.
Oh, yeah, well, I just couldn't believe it myself, because she's so beautiful, you know, a really good actress and stunning. And now I was holding hands with her. Like a schoolboy with a crush. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it was the very same day, that was in the morning, and then in the afternoon we had to do some Dalek shots. So it was all happening all in the same day.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. A really funny story. Thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
Moving on to my third question. In the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor, you got to wear the third Doctor's costume, which was worn previously by John Pertwee, of course. What was it like wearing the costume? And, okay, you've kind of mentioned this already. If you were a fan of Doctor Who before, was the third Doctor one of your favourites?
This is strange. I always loved John Pertwee. It's almost as though you knew what answer I was going to give you there, Ruari, although you don't, and I can vouch for that, but I've got a really strange story about that costume. I'd always, as I said, I always loved John Pertwee. He was one of my all-time favourite Doctors. I just thought he was amazing, charismatic, hilarious, but really serious in the part. He really had gravitas. I really thought he carried the role superbly. And when they chose me to be John Pertwee in The Day of the Doctor, I had to pinch myself. And it wasn't because of facial characteristics, because, as you probably know, they CGI'd John's face onto mine. So it must have been height or something like that, and figure, something along those lines. But anyway, they got the costume for me to wear, and it was the authentic costume that he used to wear in the 70s, which they'd hired from the Doctor Who experience, I believe. And yeah, being 40 years old, it was very precious, but also a little fragile. So I tried on the trousers, everything fitted. It was a bit snug, but it all fitted. And then they got us to put these blue plastic bags over our shoes to do the CGI superimpositions. So I was leaning down, put on one of the blue plastic bags, and I heard this horrible rip, and I'd ripped the whole back of the lovely velvet smoking jacket, which was pretty priceless. So I thought, oh no. And I handed it back to the costume department at the end of the day and said, really sorry, but I just ripped John Pertwee's smoking jacket. And they kind of looked at me with horror, but there was nothing they could do. And I said, yeah, these things happen. And they were really good about it, but I felt terrible. John Pertwee's original costume.
Yeah, That is just really sad, especially with you being such a big fan of the actor as well.
Absolutely, yes. I'm telling the truth when I say he was one of my all-time favourites. John Pertwee, Patrick Troughton, and Tom Baker, the three best ever, in my opinion. And I really couldn't choose between any of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely loved John Pertwee. What I loved about the John Pertwee days, it was just so exciting. There's so much action. You had the unit troops, which actually behaved like proper unit troops in those days and went into battle with the monsters. And it was explosions and bodies flying through the air. And, it was just so exciting. Monsters in tunnels. Brilliant stuff.
Definitely. Moving on to my fourth question. In the scene where you play the third Doctor, you got to appear with great and well-known actors like John Hurt, David Tennant, and Matt Smith. Was this experience special for you, and if so, how?
Well, I was expecting David Tennant and, of course, Matt Smith, because he was the Doctor at the time. I wasn't expecting John Hurt. I was suddenly just ushered onto the set with my other Doctor friends, and there was John Hurt standing there in this biker gear. I thought, what the hell? What's he doing here? This massive icon of the cinema. But yeah, he was John Hurt. He was cool as he always is. I didn't get any chance to talk to him, but David Tennant was really strange because there were about 5 of us dressed up as previous Doctors, because they had David Tennant, obviously, and they had the real Matt Smith. And so we were all stood in a group dressed up as our Doctors. And David Tennant saw us from across the studio, and he was with his wife. He came running over with a huge grin on his face and a camera in his hand. And he said, I can't do a Scottish accent, but he said, Doctors, can I please take a photograph of you all? And it's usually the other way around, of course, people taking photos of David Tennant. So there he stood, taking a photo of all of us in our costumes. It was wonderful. Really nice feeling. He's lovely bloke.
Yeah, I actually interviewed Scott Stevenson, who played Paul McGann's Doctor, the 8th Doctor, in that scene, and I remember him actually mentioning Tennant taking those pictures.
Mentioned that as well, did he?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm
good old
sure.
Scott. He's one of my best friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott told me he'd been on this as well. No, he was brilliant. I met him properly on the day of the Doctor, and we've been really good friends ever since. We keep bumping into each other on various projects. But yeah, he was Paul McGann. Yeah, we had a whale of a time. We've been having a whale of a time ever since. Every time we meet up on various sets, we always have a bit of a chuckle. Good times.
Yeah, that's good to hear. My 5th question is, can you talk about the difficulties in being a Dalek operator on Doctor Who?
Oh, well, depends if you get a wonky Dalek or not. I remember on Into the Dalek, there were only 3 of us on, there were 4, I think, 4 of us on set. And it was this big warehouse in St Athens, in the middle of South Wales. And my friends Matt Doman and I think it was Claudio had the 2 Daleks in front, and I was the one behind them. Their Daleks were fine. I was supposed to follow behind them and keep up with them as we attacked the rebel soldiers on the spacecraft. But what I didn't realise is that my Dalek had a wonky wheel. So when they called action, I started off, and my Dalek got stranded in the middle of the warehouse, and it just would not move on this wonky wheel. And there were 2 Daleks behind me, actually, who were supposed to stay in the background, and they overtook me because I was stranded there. So they said, cut, reshoot, and the same thing happened again. It was just a really bad wheel. And the Dalek Wrangler, I think his name was Colin, something like that, said, oh, no, you've got the worst Dalek of the lot. We'll really have to fix that one. But, yeah, so that ruined that shoot for me, really, because it was a really exciting scene as well, but my Dalek would not move. It was terrible. You really strained to get it to move across the floor. It was like a shopping trolley with a wonky wheel. Same sort of effect.
Yeah.
But that was a really good episode from the point of view of a Dalek, because it was a proper old-school action episode with Daleks actually exterminating people, which hadn't happened for a long time. There we were, invading the spaceship and blasting away, and soldiers dying left, right, and centre, including one of my good friends, Andrew Cross, who was one of the soldiers. My claim to fame is exterminating him, and every time I bump into him, I call him Dalek Roadkill. He loves it.
You just have to. You just can't avoid it. You have to make fun of the fact that you killed them on screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, when we did the recent Dalek one, The Magician's Apprentice, Andrew Cross, who'd been a victim before, was now a Dalek Operator, so he got to work alongside me. So he got promoted.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I apologize because I have to make a bad joke here, but I guess your Dalek was really the Dalek called Rusty in that one.
Yep, you could say so.
Well, here's another bad joke, actually. You mentioned, of course, that a couple of the background Daleks overtook you. I guess they were going for their 5 seconds of fame. You know, they were
Absolutely,
like, quick,
yeah.
Let's get ahead of this guy and get our 5 seconds.
Absolutely, yeah. They were fuming because we'd all been numbered. You know, not Dalek 1, Dalek 2, Dalek 3, and they were 4 and 5. And they wanted to be 1 and 2, of course. And so when I got stranded, they just zoomed past me with big grins on their Dalek faces, no doubt.
Yeah, you can't blame them, though.
You asked about difficulties of being a Dalek. Yeah, normally, if you get a good Dalek, it's fine. The movement's pretty smooth. You just have to maneuver with your shoulders and your knees. You get knee pads and elbow pads. And your feet, of course, it's like Freddie Flintstone sort of movement, just sort of paddling away. But when on the Magician's Apprentice, I was in the Special Weapons Dalek, and that was a nightmare. Absolute nightmare. The smallest Dalek I've ever been in. Couldn't see a thing through the tiny little grill. And, it was really heavy. In fact, we had to... What the spaceship was supposed to... no, it wasn't a spaceship, it was on Skaro, wasn't it? It was supposed to be cracking, the floor was cracking. We were told to slide across the floor and spin around out of control. And of course the smaller, lighter Daleks could do that without any damage, but the Special Weapons Dalek was just like a big lumbering tank. And I remember sliding madly across the floor and hearing this voice shout, "Ah!" And one of the assistant directors came running forward and said, "Are you all right, Richard?" And it was my other friend, Richard Roberts, who was in one of the Daleks. And I just crashed into him and knocked the head off the Dalek. And he was inside. And I can just remember him saying, "Oh, I didn't expect that." But I couldn't see a thing. You know, the vision was so limited in this Special Weapons Dalek. But, yeah, it was an honour to be in it, but you couldn't see a thing. And I nearly wiped out a camera as well.
Wow, that was
I think they relegated me to one corner in the end because the Special Weapons Dalek was so, unpredictable.
Yeah, that was a pretty eventful day, that's for sure.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to my next question, which episode of Doctor Who have you most enjoyed working on?
Oh, probably Day of the Daleks, because it made some really good friends. That was a great one. As I said, for meeting David Tennant and John Hurt and all that, it was just a really good feeling being one of your idols from the past, John Pertwee. That was fantastic. But all of them have been really good. I mean, the recent one, Magician's Apprentice, was really good from a Dalek's point of view because we got a lot of movement, which we don't often get on Dalek episodes. Often you're just sort of sitting, or moving a few feet. But on this one, we got to sort of glide all the way across the studio floor and move around in circles and exterminate Missy and Clara, which was fun. So we did quite a lot in that one, although the exterminations turned out to be false, but at the time it felt real. So that was a really good... I mean, they've all been good. As I said, Into the Dalek was good because it was proper action scenes, shooting soldiers, exterminating soldiers, invading a spacecraft. It was just like an old 70s episode from that point of view. From our point of view, anyway.
Definitely.
So, yeah, they've all been good. I mean, The Rings of Akatan as well was good because of the bazaar setting. It's like this strange alien bazaar with all the wonderful alien costumes. And in that one, I was in an alien, the Millennium Effects team called the Beast Man, with its long talons. And it was just an incredible set. Just to see all these aliens milling around and doing strange things. So that was good. But just about every Doctor Who episode I've worked on has been good. I did the prequel to the Christmas episode back in 2013, I think. Madame Vashna Investigates. And I was a Victorian policeman in that. And that was working with Madame Vashna and Strax, who was a lovely bloke. Great to meet him and work with him. So yeah, all of them have been good.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And my final question for you, Mickey, is do you have any upcoming acting roles or any other projects you would like to talk about? Of course, there's one that we would like to talk about, but can't.
I know which one you'd love to talk about. I'd love to talk about it myself, but obviously I can't. But I'm in a big film at the moment as well, and again, I can't talk about it, though I'd love to, because it is incredible, but I can't say a thing. What other things have I got coming up? We've been filming a series of Agatha Raisin, which is a sort of cozy comedy crime thing, with some various actors. In the one who was in extras, Ashley Jensen, she's really good in it. So I've been a copper in that most of the time, fishing dead women out of rivers and things like that. It's been quite interesting. Da Vinci's Demons, that's being broadcast at the moment. I was Jesus in that on a crucifix in a brothel. So that was very interesting, with naked nuns pouring boiling hot wax on me. So that was an experience, Rory.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I also hear that you're going to be at a London Film and Comic Con convention next spring. Is that your first convention, out of curiosity?
No, that would be my second one. I did a lovely one in Preston about a year ago, and I was sitting next to Norman Lovett, Holly from Red Dwarf. Yeah, so he kept me entertained all day, that's for sure. He's a thoroughly entertaining bloke. Hilarious. We had a lot of fans.
Yeah, I can imagine. So that's all of my... And
Pixie Lynott was there as well. She was great. So yeah, there were various people. Spencer Wilding, who played the Wolfman in The Wolfman, and the Ice Warrior on Doctor Who, of course. And Jimmy V, who was, I can never pronounce the name of the character who was in Doctor Who, Banana Cavalata or something.
Banana Cavalata.
That's the one, yeah. So he was good fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this will be my second convention. Yeah, they're great. Absolutely great fun.
Definitely. So that's all of my questions for you today, Mickey. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Rory. Loved it.
And hopefully we can talk to you again at some point.
Absolutely. Love to. Thanks again.
So I'll talk to you again soon then. Bye, and thanks again for joining us.
Cheers, Rory. All the best. Bye.
You too. Bye. Make sure to check out our podcast links. Check out our website, website.everythinggeekpodcast.com/EGP. Check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official@everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the below email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comicast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the host's YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/Septus Check out Mickey Lewis's credits on IMDb. www.imdb.com/name/NM6118829 and check out Channel 113 we broadcast live from www.channel138.com. So geeks out, everyone.
So I was on a break from that, just wandering around, and I see this lonesome Dalek. Absolutely terrified me, and I scuttled away. And of course, no one's in it, but they're so eerie.
Heavy armour. I mean, I'm not sure. The weight of it. I think somebody told me it was 4 stone of weight, including the boots. And of course, it was all, there was only ever 10 Cybermen. And it was all, the costume was made to fit one person. So